Hi, my name is Jeff H. Sipe from PracticeInterviews.com, and today we're going to focus in on a collaborative framework. So much of today's landscape is focused in on collaboration, and I want to make sure that when we get these challenging open-ended questions, that we have a good way of tackling them and looking at all the concepts and items that might be important to discuss when talking about collaboration. Today's video is going to focus much more on the interpersonal side of collaboration, and the framework that I'm posing today, it's probably too long. It's 12 concepts, but there are so many items to think through that I wanted to cast a little bit of a wider net. Remember, these frameworks are going to be critical when answering open-ended questions, and stay tuned till the end. I'm just going to run through a number of items that you might want to consider in correlation or connection to the 12 items that we go through today. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments, please comment below. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe. Item 1 is the what. We've talked a lot about frameworks, but essentially what a framework is it's a method for approaching interview questions using a defined structure. And the structure of this framework allows you as a candidate to break down an answer into fundamental pieces. If you can really capture and just take a moment to pause on that concept, it's all about organization. Creating that right level of organization will set you up for a ton of success. Item 2 is the when. So as I mentioned in the opening, we use these frameworks for open-ended questions, specifically questions that don't ask you to use an example. And the other piece is the when is when you actually use them. So you come in, ask your clarifying questions, and then you present the framework with a statement such as a few items we should consider, a few concepts we might want to talk about are, and then you mention those concepts. Item 3 is the how. And so with what I'm going to present today, like any framework, you can switch it up. You can move the information around. Less is more. Again, this is a pretty robust framework that I'm going to come to the table with today, but the how is really about that initial delivery, which we just talked about. And then the how is taking one of these framework concepts and saying to your interviewer, Sue, I think we should focus in on X. Is it okay if we drill down a little bit more into that concept? And while I'm going to drill down on each of these concepts as we move forward, it's still going to be pretty high level. You will connect it back to the role with some assumptions, and it will really, really help the depth of your solution. Item 4, PLQETPIRTATM. Similar to GHBT, RRSSS, the mnemonic is terrible. Ideally, we want to create something memorable from a mnemonic perspective, but there's so many concepts, and I kind of like this order, but play around with it to create a little bit of a better mnemonic. And I'll pin the other video to the program management framework up there. But specifically, what are the concepts here in the collaborative framework? It's positive intent, listening, questioning, empathy, trust, psychological safety, inclusivity, resourcing, transparency, action plan, training and development, and mentorship. So let's start with the first one, item 5, positive intent. This is one of my favorite items, and if you can think in this manner, it will literally change how you collaborate with others in the workforce, and that could be with an individual or with a group. Assume positive intent, that their ideas, needs, wants, that they're all coming from a positive place. And while this may not always be the case, if we foundationally start from there, we're going to be a little bit more open-minded when collaborating with others. And this positivity will not only serve you in initial discussions, but in future discussions as well. It is a great starting point. Item 6, listening. Yeah, obviously this is a very, very basic concept, but let's dig a little bit deeper. I just want you to be highlighting how you go about listening, specifically active listening. Like, it's a missing critical skill set that we all know. People are not great listeners today. So how are you going to create an environment for active listening and making sure that when you collaborate with others, again, an individual or a group, that they're being heard? Item 7 is questioning. And again, very simple concept, correlates really well with listening, but so often I hear, especially when it's questions like how do you build trust, how do you build relationships, I ask questions and I listen. Well, that doesn't really tell me a lot about you. I want to learn a little bit more about how you ask questions, the types of questions you ask. Do you focus on all open-ended questions? Do you like to start off with personal questions? What is the methodology? What is the approach that's going to really help you build those strong relationships through collaboration to ultimately get to solving the problem you're trying to solve for? Item 8, empathy. If you don't have this skill set in today's workforce, it's going to show up in one facet or another. And that empathetic lens, especially during the interview process, it's critical that you're demonstrating empathy. Without it, somebody else is going to come in and show that skill set, and it's just a must-have skill. So we can call it empathy, we can call it openness, we can call it awareness, we can call it any of those items, but your ability to put yourself in that individual's or group shoes, critical for success as well. And you're going to hear me say these words a lot throughout this video. Critical, foundation, because all these items are important. You may have to pick and choose some when you're delivering this framework. Item 9, trust. So trust is something that we build over time. So when you think about it from a collaborative framework perspective, I don't want you to just think about it as somebody who's brand new, you're meeting for the first time. Think about collaboration and building trust the 100th time you meet somebody. What does that look like? How do you do it with internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, business people, technical people, etc.? It's a critical and key concept. Item 10, psychological safety. Now, of course, this directly correlates with being empathetic, but it's different in the sense that you can have empathy, but maybe not be creating that great, safe environment. So if you're listening, questioning, building trust, it's all a strong foundation, but we need to go a step deeper. Again, this also could be correlated to openness and awareness, but these concepts will translate well. Psychological safety is essentially creating a place where people can say whatever they want, they can make mistakes, and we're not going to judge. We're just going to sit back, take it all in, look at it with positive intent, and really hear what's being said. And of course, that correlates well with item 11, which is inclusivity. This needs to be a concept on its own. We know that this is a critical foundation for collaboration. And in regards to inclusivity, again, this could be a specific person, this could be a group. It's a big word. It's essentially about providing equal access to everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their skill set, etc. And so just make sure that you're introducing this concept as much as you can, especially in today's world. We just need to have that lens. We know how powerful inclusivity is, and I think it's a critical item in this framework. Item 12, resourcing. This may feel like a pivot, and we are starting to pivot in our framework, but resourcing is one of the most critical items, and the large companies look for this. They want to see how you collaborate with others and understand how they're resourced, because so often in today's world, we're over-resourced. We have too much on our plate, and if we understand how people are resourced, maybe we can move some items off their plate. We can take what we need and put it on somebody else's plate. We can find another expert who can take on the work. So just understanding resourcing overall from a collaborative perspective is going to be really helpful. Item 12, transparency. Okay, so now let's really start to shift over towards the doing part. The beginning is just kind of creating the space, sitting back, really building the environment. With item 12 and transparency, we're going to move from psychological safety, and hopefully we've built that when collaborating with others, to being fully transparent, starting to talk about our lens, what we think is going to be the most beneficial item or items to help that person or the group grow. And this becomes our transition point, again, of kind of sitting back to more being heard. Item 13, action plan. This is where we put all the soft skills together and we start to think about collaboration as that plan, as that shared vision, whatever you want to call it. And this could actually be its own video because there's a lot of components of an action plan, but just something that I want you to be thinking about. None of this is really going to work if we don't actually put the plan in place to make sure that we're collaborating in the right method or manner. Item 14, in correlation with the action plan, training and development. So we might have some training, some development, because oftentimes we see opportunities while collaborating for people to build their soft skills, build concrete skills, etc. So we want to really think about this training and development piece. This could be a piece that you leave out, but I think it's an important one to consider, and those that can get people the right training and development typically build some of the strongest collaboration and strongest teams. Item 15, mentorship. So when we talk about mentorship, it really correlates well across the board. And again, in collaboration, sometimes we will act as the mentor, sometimes we need mentoring, sometimes we're mentoring a peer, a cross-functional stakeholder, maybe we're in a leadership role and we need to mentor our team, or maybe just an individual on our team. So mentorship is also another good concept to think about and rounds out the framework pretty well. Again, it's a lot of data, it's a pretty big framework, it's probably too much, but I think all these concepts are important. And now I want to focus in on item 16, other concepts. There's so much information, and I just had a bunch of other items that I wrote down and I've heard from clients. So I'm going to literally list them all out here now, and you can pause the video or rewind the video if you want to hear them again. But these are some other concepts that you might want to consider in a collaborative framework. Engagement, expectations/agreements, performance, drivers, information/data, documentation, tooling, dashboards, requirements, suggestions, recommendations, solutions and outcomes, perception, timelines, relationships, scope, product space, current state, prioritization, alignment/shared vision, workflows, proactivity, scenarios, specifically use cases, customers, cognitive kindness, I love that one, simplification, agendas, celebrations, communication, context, value, purpose, goals, give and take, follow-up, expanding horizons, utilization, parallels, feedback, understanding, environment, commonalities, and curiosity. It's a ton, but these are all additional items you could consider, and the only reason why I went through this ridiculously long list was just to give you an idea of how big this framework could be if we really tried to put in all the concepts, and you would never do that. You want to focus in on frameworks that are probably more in the 5 or 6 range, not really going over that, but sometimes we want to deliver a little bit more, and that's what I wanted to do in this video. I really hope it helps. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and thanks so much.